All right, ETM Hotep, welcome in peace to our Freestyle Friday, and you are hanging out with the Seshew, mdw-ntr. And today is our normal free ETM Hotep. Wow. Welcome in peace. Kind of caught myself on the echo. All right, that's fixed. So again, rewind. ETM Hotep, welcome everybody to our Freestyle Fridays, and you're hanging out with the Seshew, mdw-ntr. And on Freestyle Fridays, what we normally do is take an inscription, a picture from that's uploaded to our Facebook group, the Seshew mdw-ntr Facebook group, or any pictures that we find on the internet. And we go over those inscriptions to actually demonstrate the 4 major steps to actually transliterating and translating the inscriptions. All right. We call it the Tep Hesed, which would be the correct method, the methodology that everyone uses, whether they realize they're using it or not. All right. So we normally do that on Freestyle Fridays, but we've been doing it for a little over a year. And so on some Fridays, we kind of change it up and discuss other things. We kind of want to mix it up a little bit. So this is one of those nights. And again, so I'd like to welcome you all for tuning in. Tonight's topic will be about royal titulary or titularies. All right. And it'll be an interesting topic. So those who tuned in already, I hope you find this interesting and learn something from tonight's presentation. But before we move forward with that, I'd like to introduce myself, Reni Wujau, or Wujau Meneb Irimaat, but Wujau is fine. And I'll pass the mic for everyone else on the panel to introduce themselves.
ETM Hotep, Rennie, Antoine Germain, aka Hush Your Mouth. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm not sure how my mic is sounding.
It's good.
All right, excellent. I'd like to welcome everyone. I look forward to learning this evening.
ETM Hotep, welcome in peace, everybody. It's your brother June. Just want to say thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show and leave with satisfaction. Hotep.
ETM Hotep, Rennie Jehuti Ma'at. Enjoy the Freestyle Friday, family. Peace.
All right. Was that everyone?
Hotep, Rennie Imiket, and hopefully you enjoy the show tonight. Hotep.
ETM Hotep, Renee Sean. Thanks for tuning in. Like everyone else said, I hope you enjoy the show.
All right. I believe that's everyone. All right. So again, welcome to our Freestyle Friday. And also before we dive into tonight's topic, as it's become our custom to do, we like to recite the offering formula. And Sonnet Emicat usually bless us with the recitation. So if you can bless us again, be appreciated.
Definitely. Dua. So I'm going to recite the offering formula, and if you already memorized it by now, then you can just go ahead and recite it along with me. Hotep Tunesu, Wasser Neb Jadu, Nacha'a Neb Abju, DF Peret Heru, T Henket Ka Apet Shes Menchet, Het Nebet Neferet Wabet Anchet Nechaim, Inkani Imaku Aku Ma Heru. And what it says is an offering the king gives Osiris, Lord of Jadu, great god, Lord of Abydos, so that he may give verbal offerings in beer, bread, ox, fowl, alabaster, and linen, everything good and pure on which a god lives, for the car of the revered ones, the ancestors justified.
All right, excellent. All right, so now that puts us sets us up to really get into this topic. All right, so for those who are tuned in, if you notice, the topic of tonight's discussion is the royal titulary. Are there flying crafts or UFOs in ancient Egypt? All right, now this is a very controversial topic, a hot topic from time to time. It pops up, like I've seen it pop up almost seasonally, you know, like every other month. It skips a month, it dies down, and then it will surface again, be talked about, then it will die down. And so, and it's been doing that for quite a while. And I've addressed this myself years ago and even written an article about it. It's on the web page, on the website as well, because I found myself, whenever I engage in a discussion about the topic, I would repeat myself, you know, and I would exchange information with people, and they would understand and learn. But I was repeating myself, so I wrote an article so I would have a documented source or a link to direct everyone to. So therefore, I wouldn't have to keep saying the same things over again. But that's worked. But then, sometimes it doesn't work because you have new people that will come across new information. So they'll come across certain information for the first time, and then they'll run with it, share it, and then the topic comes back up. All right. So what I want to do, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to go over the Royal Titulary, and then we're going to address that question about the UFOs and the flying crafts in ancient Egypt, all at the same time. But now, recently, we've been doing a tour with the Amun-Ra Squad, and we've been doing a tour called the No Pseudo Tour, and we use the word pseudo in that sense to mean pseudoscience, because there's a lot of information that's being presented to the communities as if it was science, but it's really not. All right. And so on these No Pseudo tours, we go from library to library in the Atlanta area, in Atlanta, Georgia. And so we go from library to library, and we have these free lectures, presentations, discussions. And so, but we address the different claims that are made that we see on social media or just out here in general. And so one of the claims that I've addressed one time is the claim that we're dealing with tonight in terms of the UFOs, flying saucers, the hieroglyphs that seem to show UFOs and flying saucers in ancient Egypt. Because with that assumption, people are saying, well, the Egyptians were in touch with extraterrestrials, aliens, and that's who built the pyramids and everything that comes with that. Okay, so what I'm going to share is something that I've gone over on the No Pseudo tour already. So for those who are in the Atlanta area, and you see me present this, then by all means chime in. I'll be monitoring the chat, and hopefully some of the other members on the panel can monitor the chat, see if any questions come up, and I will address any questions after this. But so just give me a minute to get through it, and then I will open it up for questions and see if anybody has any thing to add or ask about. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and I'm going to lock it on me, and you all have to let me know when it's showing, if you all can see that.
Yeah, we can see it in here.
Okay, all right. So I just want to make sure it's showing on the YouTube side. All right. So yeah, and listen, and if you're tuned in live, share this link while we're live, or even when we're done. Share it to anybody who you feel who brought this topic up and you think that they may benefit from what I'm going over. All right. So again, the title is the Royal Titulary. All right, or titularies. Now, the word titulary or titulary, depending on how people pronounce it, like tomato, it's a word for titles. So when you say royal titulary, you're saying royal titles. All right, so it's nothing really special about it. It's the royal titles of the ancient Egyptian kings. Okay, so now most people may be familiar with this, but the kings in ancient Kemet, they had 5 titularies. They have 5 royal titles. All right, the first one and the oldest one is the Heru title or the Heru name. All right. The next one is the Nebti name. The third would be the Golden Heru name. And then the fourth and fifth name are probably the most popular names that people are familiar with. And the reason why is because these two names, the throne and the family name, are the names of the king that you see within this oval shaped glyph that most people know as a cartouche, but the ancient Egyptians called a shenu, from the word shini, which means to encircle. So those two names were encircled inside of a rope. But you see it in the glyphs as this oval shape. All right. And those two people will pretty much be familiar with. All right. But those are the five names: the Heru name, Nebti name, Golden Heru name, throne name, and family name. All right. So we're going to go through them one by one very briefly. And I'm just going to show an example of each one of them. So the first one is the Heru name or the Horus name. And like I said, it's the oldest of the five. All right. So now the Heru name, and hopefully you all can see my cursor. The Heru name is indicated with a falcon, which is standing for Heru, perched on top of what's called a sarek. All right. And the sarek is, you see the blown up on the right hand side, the bottom, and it's a facade of a palace. And it's presumed that the king, it's a depiction of the palace of the king. All right. And so on the right hand side, you see it blown up. Now, I blew it up on the right hand side because this particular picture is taken from, I forget where this one is actually taken from. I think this is Senwaseret, if I'm not mistaken. But I blew it up because this is very, very old. You know, we're in 2017, and this is 3,000 years or older. And yet, this is an actual picture of it. But look at the details that are still seen today. You can still observe these details, these fine details, the crisscross of the lines and the details of the artwork. And this is in stone. All right. So, just wanted to make sure I highlighted that. But this is the Heru name. And so on top of the facade and below the falcon, in between the two, you see the actual name. All right. But the thing to remember is that this is indicated by the falcon itself and the sarek. Those are the two things that stand out for this particular name. Now, what's the name is, it can change from king to king. Obviously, they had different names. But what's important to remember is the falcon and the sarek. Okay, so next we have the Nebti name. Now, the Nebti name is indicated by a vulture and a cobra. All right. And they are perched on top of a basket. And the basket itself is a glyph that stands for the word Neb, which means Lord or owner or possessor. And so we have two, and they're feminine. So this name is known as the two ladies. All right, because Egyptologists tend to translate the word, the feminine form of the word Neb as lady. So instead of saying Neb and translating as Lord, and then the feminine, instead of saying Lordess, like how people say God and Goddess, instead of saying Lord and Lordess, they say Lord for the masculine, and they say lady for the feminine. So this is known as the two ladies. And the vulture and the cobra stand for two deities, Nekhibet and Wajet. And Nekhibet was the patron deity of Upper Kemet, and Wajet is the patron deity for Lower Kemet. All right. And the two locations, more specifically, Nekhen and Butu, or Dep, for Wajet. All right. But just remember that that's what this symbol or these symbols signify. So when you see these symbols, what comes after it is the name. So Nebti and then the name. Okay. Now moving to the third one, we see the third one is the Golden Falcon name or the Golden Heru name. And I hope you all can see my cursor. Can you all see my cursor? Just want to make sure.
No. Oh, I can't.
Okay. Yeah, I think you. Okay, can you move it again?
Okay, yeah. I see it on the
All right, I
on the
see
screen.
it.
All
Yeah.
right. All right, good. So people can follow where I'm pointing. Okay, so where my cursor is, I'm pointing to another falcon, which remember is the golden heru. So the falcon here is perched on a necklace. This is a golden necklace. So it represents the golden falcon name. So once you see the falcon perched on the necklace, you know what comes after it will be the actual name. All right. So this is, and if you can't see the cursor for any reason, what I'm pointing to towards the bottom of this picture, you'll see a falcon that's underneath the owl. And hopefully you all can recognize the owl. Beneath the owl, you'll see a falcon, and then you'll see a necklace perched on top of the necklace. All right, so that's the golden falcon name, and it's known as Bik Nebu. The word Bik is falcon, and Nebu is for gold. Next, the fourth name is the throne name. All right, and this one, a lot of people should be familiar with this name and this term that we use, Nisut Biti. All right, so the glyphs that indicate this name is the sedge plant on the left, and you see the raised bread loaf beneath it, and then you see the bee with the raised bread loaf beneath it. So the sedge is an emblematic symbol for Upper Kemet, and then the bee was the emblematic symbol of Lower Kemet. So some people translate this phrase Nisut Biti as the dual king, and other people may say that it means, or they'll translate it as the king of Upper and Lower Kemet. So no matter how they translate it, we all, should be familiar with what it's talking about. All right. Now, once you see the sedge and bee together like this, the next set of glyphs that you see after that would be the throne name itself, and it's always inside of a cartouche, as they say, or shenu, which is the ring. And you can kind of see the beginning of it at the bottom of this picture. All right. Next and last, the fifth name is the Sarah name. All right. The Sarah name is indicated by a bird, a pintail duck, to be more precise, and then the solar disk here. So the duck represents the word Sa for sun, and then the solar disk represents Ra. So the son of Ra. All right. And this would indicate the fifth and final name would be the family name. This is the name. Now, this is the name that we are familiar with all of the kings. So, for example, if I say Hatshepsut, everyone knows who Hatshepsut is, but that's her family name. That's not her throne name. Now, what's interesting about that is that in ancient times, the kings were more so known by their throne name. So Hatshepsut's throne name is Ma'at Kara. So pardon me, Ma'at Kara is her throne name. But today we really wouldn't recognize her by that name. So before I just mentioned that that's Hatshepsut, most people won't know that that's Hatshepsut if I said Ma'at Kara. All right. Same thing with Ramses II. People are familiar with that name. Tutankhamun, Amenhotep. These are all family names. And the only reason why we are more familiar with those is because early Egyptologists chose to identify the kings with the fifth name and not necessarily the throne name, which would have been more proper had we been alive in ancient Egyptian times. All right, so just keep that in mind. But the important thing to remember here is that the Sa-Ra name is preceded with the Sa and the Ra, the duck and the sun disk. Okay, so now what I'm showing on the screen is a picture of a set of glyphs that are right in front of an entrance within a temple. All right, now this particular temple is in what's commonly known as Abydos, or anciently known as Abju. All right, this is the temple of Seti I. All right, and this is just one picture that's blown up, so you can see the glyphs pretty clear. And by the way, if you're watching this and it's a little blurry, make sure you click on the cogwheel on the video and change your settings to 720 or 480. All right, that's just in case it's blurry for you. All right, so here we have this entrance. Now, because it's Freestyle Friday as well, so I'm going to kind of combine a little bit about what we do on Freestyle Fridays also, which are the 4 steps to actually transliterating and translating. Remember, those 4 steps are, the first step is to identify the direction in which the glyphs are to be read. The second step is to identify each and every single glyph. The third step is to do pattern recognition and group the individual glyphs together to form words and then look them up. And step 4 would be to combine all of that into a sensible translation. All right, so I'm not going to go through the details of that, but for the sake of showing everyone what's going on in this particular picture, and you'll find this true for entrance ways, pretty much all of the entrance ways in Kemet, where the glyphs are in multiple directions. So if you notice, these sets of glyphs are symmetrical. The Ankh right here in the middle, and I hope you all can see my cursor, but I'm sure you can see the Ankh. The Ankh is in the middle, and then you see the glyphs to the left of the Ankh on both rows. You have 2 rows of glyphs. The glyphs to the left of both Ankhs are facing to the right. And that means that you're going to read them from the right going to the left. And the easy way to remember that is just look at what we do today. We talk to each other face to face. We don't talk to each other, the back of each other's heads. So if you're reading this, just imagine yourself facing the animals and human figures or whatever figures that are in the scene. Imagine that you're facing them, and that's the direction you go. All right, so you're going to go from right to left for all of the glyphs on the left-hand side of the Ankh. All the glyphs on the right-hand side of the Ankh, you are going to read from left to right. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. But now we're going to go into detail about each row. So we're going to deal with row number 1. All right, so first up is going to be the glyphs to the left of the Ankh. And what I did, I reproduced them so that everyone can see them very clearly beneath the picture. So you see the Ankh, you see the falcon, you see the sun disk, you see the bull, you see the hand with a object in it, you see the owl, etc., etc. Okay, so beneath that, I have the transliteration written out, and it's using a transliteration system that we know as manual decodage, and it's case sensitive. So when you see uppercase and lowercase letters being alternated here, that's there for a reason. So that's not something that's accidentally done. I didn't have my shift key or caps lock on by accident or anything. That's done purposely for that transliteration system. All right. So I will read the transliteration and then also the translation. But now these particular glyphs, you would read them from right to left. So you would start with the Ankh and work your way going to the left. But because we're reading in English, the transliteration and translation, I wrote it from left to right. So just so you all are clear on that. So it reads, Ankh Heru Ka Nekhet Imka Was Sa Ankh Tawi Necher Nefer Sa Wasir. All right. And what that says is the living Heru, strong bull, who appears in Waset, sustainer of the 2 lands, the good God, son of Wasir. All right. So now, based on the 5 names that I mentioned earlier, what we noticed that we have the Heru name. We have the Heru. Now, earlier I mentioned that the Heru name is within what's called a Sarek. Now, that's the normal way you'll find the Heru name, especially in isolation. But when it's written like this inside of temple entrances and things like this, like what I'm showing you, you don't see the Sarek itself. But we will understand it to be the Heru name because it's preceded by the Heru, the falcon itself. All right. So Ankh Heru, the living Heru, and then Khaneket, which would be the bull, and this arm here, Khaneket. M would be in, and then Kha would be appears. So who appears in this place here, Waset, and then Sa'ankh it means to sustain. All right. The word Ankh means life, and then the S in front of it is to cause to live. And it's a fancy way of saying to sustain something. To cause something to live perpetually means to sustain it. All right. And then we have the symbols for Tawi, and then Necher Nefer Sa Wasir, which is the son of Wasir. All right. But now I just want you to remember what these glyphs look like. All right. Just take a mental snapshot of that. All right. We're going to the next. Now, this is the other side, the right-hand side. Now, notice the right-hand side pretty much mirrors the left. They're identical except for the very end. So I'll go through this quickly. So we have Ankh Heru, Kha Neket, and Waset. So Ankh Tawi, Necher Nefer, Ir Akut. So it's a different ending here. Instead of Sa Wasir like the other one up here, it's Ir Akut. So it says, living Heru, strong bull, who is in Waset, sustainer of the two lands, the good God, and maker of benefactions. That's what that Ir Akut means, maker of benefactions. All right. So again, this is the same name, same Heru name for this particular king, but these epithets at the end are different. All right. So Kha Neket and Waset. All right. Just keep that in mind. Now we're going to go down to the second row. The second row, starting with the Ankh again, it splits, and we're dealing with the left-hand side. Now notice it starts off with Nisud Biti. So that should alert us right there that we're talking about the throne name. This is the fourth of the 5 names I gave earlier. All right. So we have Ankh, Nisud Biti, Neb Tawi, Min Ma'at Ra, Meri Heru. So we have Nisud Biti. And remember I said the throne name and the family name are within Cartouche or Shenu. So we have Nisud Biti, Neb Tawi, Lord of the two lands. And then we have the name. So it's the king of upper and lower Kemet, Lord of the two lands, Min Ma'at Ra, beloved of Heru. So this particular name is the name of this king. So this is the name that a lot of the Egyptians would have, pretty much known, respectfully identified this king as Min Ma'at Ra. Now I want you to make sure you pay attention to these glyphs. These are 3 glyphs that spell this name. Min in the middle, Ma'at on the left, and Ra to the right. Min Ma'at Ra. This is written in honorific transposition, but that's another topic that maybe we get into later. But what I want you to do is remember these glyphs in this order. Okay, so you got this sun disk right here. Then we have this Min board. Then we have the deity Ma'at kneeling or seated with the Ankh here and everything like that. Just take a mental snapshot of this. All right, let's move on. Okay, now on this side, we have the Sarah name. Notice you see the duck and the sun disk here. And we have a Shenu. So this would be the family name. So the whole thing, it says Ankh Nesud Biti, Sarah Seti Merni Pata, Meri Aset. So this is the familiar name we know this king by. And this is none other than Seti the First. All right, Seti the First is the father of Ramses II. All right. So his name, we just say Seti, but his name is actually Seti Merni Pata, which means Seti Merni Pata. This Merni Pata means beloved of Pata. All right. He who is of Set or Satuk, beloved of Pata. That's what his name means. And then the epithet after is he's also beloved of Aset. Comes after it. Now, what I want you to do here is just remember the Sarah and the Nisud Biti and the name. Okay, now I mentioned Seti the First. He's the father of Ramses II. So here what we're looking at, this is outside of the temple. So here what we're looking at is a statue that's at the top here. And below this is a base. This is the base of a statue. And these are the glyphs that are along the side. Now these glyphs belong to a different king. This is Seti the First's son, Ramses II, or people know as Ramses the Great. All right. Now what we can identify here is part because it's a glare and a light on this picture, but hopefully you can see it. You'll see the falcon that's perched on the golden necklace. Obviously the necklace here is not gold because it's carved in stone, but it's a replica of the golden necklace. So this is the golden falcon name. Now remember, that was the 3rd name of the 5 that I gave. So once you see the falcon on top of the gold necklace, you know what comes after that is the golden falcon name itself. Okay. And then we notice also we can identify Nisud Biti right here. You see the sedge plant and the B. And right after that should be the throne name, because the Nisud Biti signifies the throne name, which is the fourth name out of the 5. And so this is the throne name of Ramses II. And it is Wisser Ma'at Ra Setepen Ra. And I know a lot of you may be familiar with that name through our elder Ashwa Kwesi, because he definitely speaks about Ramses II a lot. Wisser Ma'at Ra Setepen Ra, or Ramesu, you know, and we call him Ramses II, but his name is Ramesu. All right, but this is his throne name. Now, what I want you to pay attention here is important. Just remember these glyphs right here inside of the Shenu. Now, look how they are. We have a sun disk on the right hand side. We also have a sun disk on the left hand side, and we have Ma'at sitting on a throne right here in the middle, and she's holding a wasp scepter. Now, this wasp scepter is crowned with a canine head. Okay, and it's for the word wasir. So we say wasir Ma'at Ra, and then we have Setep in Ra, and the Setep is an adze device. It's a almost like an axe, not an axe, but it's like a tool, and it's called an adze. And beneath that you see a water ripple. So Setep in, and then we have another sun disk for the word Ra. So we have Wasir Ma'at Ra, Setep in Ra. Okay, so just remember that. All right, take a mental snapshot of that. It's gonna be important later. So here's his name again, and I'm gonna go a little bit quicker because this is just a repeat of his name. But what's important here is that we see his name written in 2 rows. They're identical. If you look at the name above and below, I'm speaking about what's in the cartouche. So the name here is the throne name, and the name after it is the Sarah name. So the throne name again is Wasir Ma'at Ra Setepen Ra. And then the Sarah name is Ramesses Miri Amin. So it's Ramesu Miri Amin, which means Ra gave birth to him, beloved of Amin. Okay. Now, if we were to fully translate that, it would be something like Ra gave birth to him, he's beloved of the imperceivable one, or the hidden one, as people translate Amin. All right, but I want you to pay attention again just how these glyphs are in this Shenu. So we have Ma'at right in the middle. We have 2 solar discs. Now this one's a little different because it has Ra as a seated falcon with the solar disc above the head. So it's not just a disc. But we have that adze instrument, the water ripple, and the sun disk here. All right, so we're gonna go on. And here's another extra picture showing Ramses II name. Now, what's interesting here to share with you all, we have the cartouche, and it's symmetrical. So if you notice that each side is repeating. So we have the throne name, we have Wasir Ma'at Ra, and hopefully you can see my cursor. And we have Setep in Ra. And then we have his name as Ramesses. So we have Ramesses, which will be the Sarah name, and we have his throne name, Wasir Ma'at Ra, Setep in Ra. Now notice that we have the golden, not the golden, excuse me. We have the Heru name, which is the first name that I gave here. Kaneket Miri Ma'at. Same thing for the other side. These are identical. They're just symmetrical for aesthetic reasons. Now the Nebti name, which is the second name of the ones I gave you out of the 5, the Nebti name is split, but it's identical. If you look at these glyphs here on the left, they're the same as the ones on the far right. But what's different is that this side has the vulture and the other side has the cobra. So it basically took the Nebti name and just split it for aesthetic purposes. So on this side you have Wajet, other side you have Nekibet, but it's the same name. So that's the Nebti name. They just split it up. All right, so here's an example of a Sarah name of Ramesses. So you have the Sarah, so you see the duck, solar disk, Sarah. So that would be the family name. And you see the name Ramesses inside of it, Ramesses Meri Amin. I'm just showing you that In this particular temple, this is a temple in Abydos of Seti I. And what happened is Seti I started the temple, but during his lifetime, he didn't get a chance to complete it while he was alive. So when Ramses II, his son, took the throne, he completed the temple. So this is why you see both kings' names within this temple, Seti I and Ramses II. This particular picture I'm showing now is Ramses II's name. All right. Now, here's another example of the Nisud Biti that you see up under here. It's kind of hard to make out what's inside the cartouche or the Seshew, but just take note of the Nisud Biti, the sedge and the B here. All right. Going to the next picture. Same thing. It's hard to make out what's inside the cartouche because of the damage, but what we can see is the Nisud Biti, the sedge and the B again. All right, now look here. And I hope you see my cursor. If you can't see my cursor, I'm pointing to the middle of this picture. All right, and you look along this picture here, and you notice a cartouche here. So remember, the cartouche can be one of two names, either the throne name or the family name. Now, how you know which one is which is, like I said, if it's Nisud Biti, if it's the sedge and the B in front of it, it would be the throne name. If it's the duck and the solar disk in front of it, it would be the family name. This one happened to be the Nisud Biti name. You see the sedge and the B right here. So we have Nisud Biti, Nebtawi, and then the name. But now look at what you see inside the cartouche. It looks like there are two sets of glyphs overlapping one another. Now remember what I said. Pay attention to Seti's, the first throne name, where you had the solar disk and then that min board, and then you have Ma'at on the right. So we had the sun disk, the min board, and Ma'at. And for Ramses II name, remember you had the solar disk, you had Ma'at right in the middle holding the Wa scepter with a canine type of head, and then we had the Ad symbol, the water ripple, and the solar disk. So you can see that both of those names are in this Seshew or cartouche. Just keep that in mind as we keep going. Here's a close-up of it, so there's no mistakes about it. All right, so hopefully you can see it better here. You see how you have this min board right here, and you see you have Ma'at in the same spot. All right, you see the solar disk right here, and then you see a smaller solar disk right there. You had a solar disk within a solar disk, and there's a reason for all of this, and we're going to get to that in a second. But I just want you to observe what we're looking at. Very good. All right. So now what we just looked at is what's called a palimpsest. All right. And a palimpsest is, I'll just read. The glyphs that we're looking at are a result of both erosion of the stone surface and the process of filling in and recarving the stone to replace some of the original hieroglyphs. The technical term for such a surface that has been written on more than once is called a palimpsest. The usurping and modifying of inscriptions was common in ancient Egypt throughout its entire history. The glyphs here were modified at least once in antiquity and perhaps twice. Some of the filling has fallen out in the places where the older and the newer inscriptions overlap, and the result is unique and odd looking. So let's go back. So now that you know what is called a palimpsest and what it is, now if you go back and look at it, you can see that both kings' names, throne names, are overlapping each other. So again, remember I said when Seti I was alive, he started the temple, but he didn't complete it. Ramses II comes in and completes the rest of the temple, and in some places he carved over his father's name. So what the scribes did was plaster back in. Remember, this is what's called sunk relief, and so it's carved into the stone. And so what they did was they filled it back in to make the surface smooth again, and then they carved the new carvings on top. And so Ramses II throne name got carved on top of his father's name. So throughout the ages, the plaster part falls away, and now it reveals both names. That's what we're looking at. So what are we getting to? Okay, so bam. All right, so here is the controversial picture of the so-called UFOs or flying crafts in ancient Egypt. People use this particular picture to try to support the fact that ancient Egyptians were in touch with aliens, spacecrafts, and everything like that. But now that I've given you that fundamental information about the royal titularies, which are the 5 royal names, now you will understand what this is really all about. But before we get to the craft part, let's go over here to the Shenhu, because that's what we've been talking about the most so far. Look inside the Shenhu. Again, remember I told you all to memorize the way that Seti's name looks, his throne name. You have Min in the middle. You have Ma'at on the left, kneeling with the Ankh on her knees. You can see that. And you have the solar disk in the front. So you have the solar disk, the Min board, and Ma'at. And remember, his throne name is Min Ma'at Ra. How we know it's a throne name? Because it's in the cartouche, number 1. And then 2, it's right after the Nisud BT. You have the sedge plant right here. The B is here. All right. So now, but also in the same cartouche, we see Ramses II's throne name, which is Wasir Ma'at Ra Setepen Ra. So again, we have the solar disk in the front, the Wa scepter that she's holding on with the canine top, Ma'at squatting with the Ankh on her knee, and then behind her we have the Adz instrument, the water ripple, and the sun disk right here. So we have Wasir Ma'at Ra and then Setep in Ra. All right, so that's clearly a palimpsest. All right, so now let's go over to the glyphs that people say are flying saucers and things like that. Now we get a chance to know what this is. This entire column here it consists of all 5 names of the 2 kings, Seti I and his son Ramses II. So stretched all the way across are all 5 names. Now what you're looking at in this particular picture is only one section of it. So let's look at another section. But before I move away from this picture, look at this palimpsest part up here on the left inside the cartouche, in case you can't see my cursor. And then look at the undamaged portion that Ramses II had carved here on this column on the right where my cursor is. And you can see, just compare the 2. You can see Ma'at in the middle, the Wa scepter, the sun disk, and then behind it, the Adz instrument, the water ripple, and the sun disk. You can compare it and see it. They're overlapping. All right, so let's go on. Now, this is the other side. This is the other side. This is to the right. This will be a continuation of those glyphs, but to the right. So this is another picture that's showing you more of the glyphs. And here you can see this Ankh at the far right-hand side. This is the beginning of the royal titularies. All right, Ankh. And then you read from right to left. So Ankh. And remember what we read before. I showed you all before. We have the Heru, the solar disk, the bull, the arm with a stick in it, the owl, the half appearance of the sun behind the owl, and so on and so on. But you can see even here where glyphs start to overlap. So what happens is you have the Ankh Heru, which is the Heru name of both kings. Now remember, both kings had the same Heru name to start with, which is Ka Neket, which is strong bull. Both of them were called strong bull, but what came after differed. So we have who appears in Waset for Seti, but then we have beloved of Ma'at for Ramses II. And it's exactly what we're looking at right here. We have the owl, the Ka symbol, and the Waset staff right here. And then for Ramses II, we have Ma'at squatting down. You see the feather. And then we have the Myrrh symbol, which is a hoe, a garden hoe for the word myrrh. And it means beloved. All right. So I'm not going to read all the way through it, but I just want you to notice that these are simply two sets of kings' names overlapped on top of one another. All right. And once you know all of the royal names of both kings, you can clearly see that that's what you're looking at. So now let's go back to, let me go back. Right here in the middle, you see this Ankh, but you see how it's overlapping, there's glyphs that are overlapping and things like that. So now let's look at an undamaged one. And I'm going to go back to the picture I was just at. Okay, so now this is within the same temple, but this is undamaged. And you can see where it says Sa'ankh Tawi. You have the Ankh in the middle. You have the two plants for upper and lower Kemet. And then you have the folded cloth there. And together this spells the phrase Sa'ankh Tawi, which means sustainer of the two lands. All right. And on the right-hand side, you have the Wasp scepter. And on the left-hand side, the far left, you can see where Nekibet, or the vulture, is starting to show. So it's going to go into the Nebti name. All right, so let's look at what the Nebti name is. And here it is. You see the vulture. I'm going to continue to the right and to the left. This is the vulture on top of the basket and the cobra on top of the basket. So as soon as you see Nebti, then what follows is going to be the actual Nebti name. And you can see how it's going to go into that name. So this is undamaged. But if I go back, let me go back to what you saw before. On this one is damaged because both sets of glyphs are on top of each other. But you can still make out the vulture. You can see the vulture right here. You can see the cobra right there. You can see the two baskets that they're on. And you can see this calf hoof, the hoof of a calf and the leg right here next to the Nebti name. You can see it starts off with this hoof of a calf, of a cow or cattle. All right. Now let's go to the clearer picture and you'll see it. The Nebti, you got the vulture and the cobra, but look on the left. That's the hoof of the calf right here. So this is in the same temple, but it's undamaged. It's an undamaged portion of the temple. All right. So let's keep it moving. So now what is this actually saying where these glyphs are that people are claiming to be UFOs and things? So what I'm showing here is that this set of glyphs here is really two sets of glyphs on top of each other. So we're going to deal with it one by one. In Seti the first time, this is part of his name. And part of his name was the phrase dur, which means to drive or expel out. All right. And you can see that with the hand, and it's on top of an open mouth. And I overlay it in black right here of what it really would be. The hand and open mouth, and you have the arm with the stick in it. And that word right there is the word dur, which means to expel or to drive out. Now, during Ramses the second time, when he was alive and he carved over it, they filled in and carved this over it. And this phrase is Mak Kemet, which means the defender or protect Kemet, which is the kingdom. So we see the half open here. We have the arm, then we have the basket with a handle, and then we have the word for Kemet. This is an abbreviated form of the word Kemet. All right. And everyone should recognize this. I call it the X-Men X belt buckle, which is the X with a circle in it, which signifies a city, a place where people live, a place of municipality, etc. Now let's go over to this section. This is during Seti the First's time. His section would say Pasejet, which is really a bow and 9 single strokes that you can see here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the raised bread loaf. And this spells out the number 9. There are 9 single strokes for the number 9 and the word Pasejet. And it's called the 9 bows. All right. And you see it overlaid here. During Ramses' second time, he had it carved over, and it spells the word Wafu. And you see the quail chick with the arm going through it, the other arm with a stick, and you see a set of 3 hills. And these hills represent the word chasut, which means foreign lands. Because remember, to the ancient Egyptians, those people who lived on the other side of the mountains and the hills were foreigners, because in ancient times they had natural borders. The natural borders could be the desert, the hills, or water. All right, or even the cataracts, with along the Nile, first and second cataract that people are familiar with. But anyway, this says wafao, which means to conquer or subdue. That's part of Ramses' name. All right, so here are both sets during Seti's time. So it says Der Pasejet, which means to expel or drive out the 9 bows. 9 bows were enemies of Kemet. All right, now these 9 bows represented the 9 different communities that were enemies to Kemet, but those communities changed throughout the Kemet's history. So it wasn't always the same set of 9 communities that were considered enemies. So the name stuck as 9 bows, being synonymous with enemies. And this is it for the time in before I show you the time for Ramses II, this is an undamaged part of that exact same phrase. So again, remember, demonstration beats conversation. So when people try to argue with this is what you show them. You show this is in the same temple. This is in the same temple of Seti I. This is the same list of names, but here's an undamaged portion. So we see the hand, for those who doubted that was a hand. We have an open mouth for those who doubted that. The arm with the stick in it, and then a pasejet. The only difference here is a little bit damaged right here, where you see that one stroke and that stroke right there are missing because of the damage. But these are 9 single strokes, the bow and the raised bread loaf. Der Pasejet. All right, so now here are the glyphs during Ramses' time. So what it says is Mak Kemet, which is defender of Kemet, and then Wafau Chasut. All right. That's during Ramses' time. And here are both glyphs with the black part of it that I filled in. This is overlaid just so you can see how it starts to form what looks like an Apache helicopter. This one looks like a hovercraft. This looks like a space shuttle, Columbia, that NASA built. This looks like a hovercraft from the Star Wars movie. So all these things start to come into play now that you see these glyphs are overlapping one another. All right. But again, now that you have the understanding of what it is, it should be no longer in your mind. It should be any spacecrafts or anything like that. All right. And remember, demonstration beats conversation, and understanding the language, which is what we deal with at the Seshew mdw-ntr group. Knowing this stuff and educating yourself will prevent any type of pseudo misinformation. You embracing any kind of misinformation. So again, just one more time, I'm showing that these are the 2 names that are overlaid. So we have Seti I's pronomen, which is his throne name, and Ramses II's pronomen, which is his throne name. They're overlapping each other right here. And confirmation, if you want to see how it looks undamaged, is right next to it over here on the right hand side. That would be Ramses' name, though. All right. So just remember that. And so that's what we're dealing with. And let's see, what do I have left? Okay, so now here is an example. And I'm leave this on the screen for a minute, or anybody can rewind this this video. This is what the full titulary looks like, or looked like, in ancient times. All right, this is how it looked. At the top one is how it looked during Seti I's time. And then when he died, his son came behind him and had the scribes plaster all of that in that was not relevant to his name, and then they recarved the titles for his name. Remember, royal titulary is a fancy way of saying royal titles, and they're 5 in all, and you can see them. So let's count which ones we have here. Let's go with Seti. We have the Heru name, that's indicated by Heru right here. Then we go on and we run into the next name, the Nebti name, because we have the cobra, the vulture, and the cobra. And then next to that would be the name itself. We keep on going. Then all of a sudden we have the Nisudbiti. So the Nisudbiti, which is the sedge and the bee. And we know going next to that would be the name. So we see the name. Then we have Sa-Ra. And my picture cuts off, but to the left of this would be the actual Sa-Ra name. All right. I didn't include it on this picture because it was outside of the frame of the pictures that I was showing. But next to that would be the Sa-Ra name as well. That would be Seti the first. And then Ramses II, here are all his titles here. All right. What's missing from here would be the golden Heru name. But we have the Heru name, the Nepti name, the Nisut Bidi name, and then the Sa-Ra name. What's missing would be the golden falcon name. All right. So hopefully everyone can understand that. And it's this section right here. This section right here. I can't highlight it, but this is a section of confusion. This is a section that people are claiming that are spaceships and all of that good stuff. But now we know that that's not the case. And people have to understand that these glyphs are a language. They are a writing system for a language. They're not simple pictures. They're not things that you just look at and say, oh, honey, that looks nice. Look at that. No, this is a form of writing for a language. So it says something. All right. People have to understand that. And I believe that is the last slide I had. Yeah, well, this is the last slide, but this just shows again the Nepti name here. All right. So hopefully, let me unshare my screen. All right. So hopefully that was clear. And if anybody has any questions about what I went over, anybody on the panel want to chime in and have anything to add to what I shared, and I'll just be monitoring the chat to see if anybody had any questions about anything that I showed. And again, everything I shared is on the website, mdw-ntr.com, mdw-ntr.com. And it's one of the articles that was written years ago. I actually posted on Facebook as well a long time ago, and it's on the website. So if you want to go back and read through it, and you can always, obviously, of course, rewind this video and share it, because a lot of people talk about this, but share it just so they'll know. But anyway, so anybody on the panel have anything, any comments, questions, anything?
Yeah, I'll just add real quick. Those in the community that get labeled pseudoscience, they've been getting a lot of run out of this one right here. So it's time to put this to an end. They've been acting like this is like a fact that ancient Kemet had electricity, UFOs on the walls, alien languages written, alien gave them the language, all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's time for that run to come to an end real quick. Gotta spread this, share this video.
Right. Exactly. See, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were gonna say something, June?
Yeah, oh my bad. I was trying to unmute my mic, and my bad. Yeah, I was gonna say that's why it's so important that it's so important and critical to learn the language. There's so much propaganda, I call it, you know, out there, and a lot of it is not true. And once you get to learn the language and the culture, and also, you know, stuff like a palimpsest, what a palimpsest even is, you will learn more, and you won't, you know, fall victim to all this false propaganda out there. I mean, it's like from TV shows to websites to you know, whatever. It's just, you know, I'm just glad we're out there making these videos, so at least people will have some kind of resource on the information. So I appreciate the slideshow, and I hope everyone else got it. And like you said, we're taking questions in the chat. So
Yeah.
Chime in if you guys have something, but that's all I had. Hotel.
Yeah, I don't see any questions so far. And see, when I presented this at the, during our No Pseudo tour at the libraries, when I did, there weren't too many questions then either, because I mean, people just got it. And in person, I'm able to point, have a pointer and everything like that. So I was able to talk more about different things. But it should be clear right now that this is not spaceships, it's not flying crafts, although it may look like that. Because, when you look at it, it does look like a Apache helicopter. It does look like a space shuttle Columbia and all that stuff. But it's just, that's not what it is, And even as little children look up in the sky at clouds, and then they look at the formation of the cloud, and they'll say, oh, that looks like a elephant, or it looks like a lion, or it looks like Mickey Mouse, or whatever the case is. But we know that it's not. And the clouds are not trying to convey a mouse or an elephant or a lion. And so that's what people have to understand, that the hieroglyphs that they call a hieroglyphic writing system, as that we know as Seshew mdw-ntr, is a writing system. It is not just some pictures. And that's the difference between those who actually study the language and understand the culture, the language, and how languages work, versus those who don't and don't take the time out to. And so you have these people who will say that the hieroglyphic writing system has not been deciphered, and that the glyphs are simply just pictures. And how do you put a sound to a picture? So now you can see it's those kind of people and that mentality that will look at this and think that those are spaceships, because they in their mind, they don't even conceive of it being a writing script for a language, and that those are words and they have meanings. So if you don't even have that in your mind, then of course you're going to look at that and say those are spaceships and those are flying saucers. Now, even the light bulb thing, I did something light bulb thing. I may share that another time. But yeah, the whole light bulb thing, everything, aliens. I did the whole thing about aliens, actual aliens, not even the crafts that I just showed tonight, but the aliens themselves. They try to show a picture and say that's an alien, but it's really a lotus bud. It's really a lotus, a water lily that's fully blossomed on top, and then the two branches that come out, they're unbudded. It's the buds, and it looks like the eyes, the almond shaped eyes of a gray alien extraterrestrial, or whatever the case is. But it's just a lotus flower, a lily, being offered. So show that. And then even the light bulbs, they're not light bulbs. They look like light bulbs, what our light bulbs look like, but it's not. That's not what it is. So we have to definitely eliminate the misinformation and what we call lookership, people that look at something and just assume without actually understanding. And it's not that hard. People just take the time out and learn the language, and then it'll be okay. So I did this presentation for that reason. On our No Pseudo tour, I did the article for that reason, and I'm sharing it tonight for the same reason. So again, those who are tuned in now, if you ever see this pop up in conversation on social media, whatever the case is, just share this link, share the link for the website, and let people read it, and let them come, let them, gain the knowledge. And if they still want to believe that it's spaceships, then hey, at least you provided them with the information. All right. Because even if you didn't know a thing about the language, it still defies all logic and reasoning, because if the ancient Egyptians had electricity and had access to flying saucers and flying crafts, then in ancient times, now 5,000 years ago, they would dominate the entire world. They would not be able to be invaded by anybody, whether they're called the Hikakasut, whether they're called the Seshew. I mean, sorry, not the Seshew, the Seshew, or whatever, the 9 bows. There would be no enemy, because their enemies would be just non-existent if they had that access to flying crafts and electricity. And then on top of that, everybody would be after it, because you got to remember, there were no street lights in ancient times. No street lights. Everybody relied on the sun during the day, the moonlight during the night, and then fire. They light lamps with fire. But imagine if you had electricity and you could have light bulbs and stuff. I mean, come on. At nighttime, your whole place will be lit up. And everybody would take notice and then want your technology to try to take it from you and everything. But anyway, I don't want to even entertain that because all of that's just not true. I'm just saying, just with common sense, it just wouldn't even make sense. But anyway, I don't see any questions. So
I got a couple of questions.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, my questions, Mr. Brother Antoine. One of my questions doing with the Serex.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the one that you showed. Now it's important to the Shrek is that if you showed the building and how clear the building was at the bottom.
Right.
And we saw the Shrek had Horus or Haru at the top of it. I want to know if you could kind of discuss like how other Shreks, the bottom may be the same, but it's possible for the top to be different.
Okay. Let me share it again. And then I can show you.
Yeah, that's my first question, and I'll say my second question.
Okay, so give me a moment. I'm gonna share it. It's taking a minute to pop up, so it should be showing now. And I'm not showing it in full screen mode, just for the sake of me being able to go back and forth a lot faster. So, but hopefully people can see it on the screen. I don't see it pop up. Can you all see it?
See you. What's up?
Okay. All right. So yeah, it's not in full screen mode, but hopefully everybody can make it out. But yeah, this is the Sarek, and the word Sarek means to make known. All right. And so you're asking me, the bottom portion is the same. Now on the Sarek, the components of a Sarek is the facade of a palace, which is usually at the bottom, and then the top portion would be the falcon. So those are the two main things to identify with. The palace itself, the way this one's carved, it may be carved differently by different scribes in different time periods. So, but the point here would be that it's actually a facade to a palace. And then the names will be different. Like for example, this one would be this name would be different. Mesut, Ankh Mesut, for this particular name. But now above it on a couple of kings, you may see the example of Heru, as we know that this is a Heru name, but you also see Satuk, which is a mammal type animal that's amalgamated, that a lot of people can't figure out exactly what species of animal it is, but you can definitely readily identify it as Satuk, though, the actual glyph and everything that represents Satuk. So sometimes you'll see Satuk and Heru there, and I believe that's what you were asking about. And I know in one such king, I believe will be Per Ibsen. One of his names, I believe, has both of them, and that's a very old one. All right. So, but this is known as the Heru name, and it's the oldest of the five. So by oldest, meaning that this name is attested before all the others. By the time you get to the 4th and 5th dynasty, you'll find the kings having all 5 names. All right, so hopefully people can understand that. Yep.
Excellent. Y'all find that interesting that they had the Haru at the top of the Shrek, and then at a certain point in time it changed, and then eventually went back to Haru. My other question was dealing with the you showed the 9 bows. Mm-hmm. So I know we know that like Ta Seti means land of the bow, and I would get this is for my own personal clarification. And then we have the 9 bows, and you were kind of discussing how the 9 bows could apply to different groups, or it doesn't apply to one single group, but it could be a different 9 at any point in time. Can you kind of restate what you're saying about the 9 bows?
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully you can see my screen switch, and so this is what the word 9 bows is. The word Pasejet, and that's the word for the number 9, Pasejet. And so the the 9 bows became known as a word for enemies in general, but specifically, it was speaking about 9 communities in the South. So the bow represents the word set, which means to pierce, which means to stab or to pierce. And so, but it became the instrument for stabbing and piercing, which is an arrow. So it's an arrow, but the bow is used to launch an arrow. So, you know, the arrow and the bow, or the bow and arrow together, became also the word Pasejet or Seti. And so when we say Ta Seti, we're saying Ta meaning land and Seti meaning bow. So it's the land of the bow. So that area, that geographical location was known, the population of people were known to be very good and skillful at the bow, hunting. It's a skill that comes out of the hunting, hunter and gathering skill set of hunting animals. And that's how, you know, food production was made and all of that. And to where they refine their skills to in terms of defense and military and war, you know, fighting and stuff like that. All right. So it's easy to cross over from your skills in hunting to your skills at defending your country, because all you do is just, instead of aiming your bow and arrows at animals, you aim it at other human beings that's trying to harm you and harm your place. So the 9 bows, there were 9 communities that were identified in ancient times. But then the word itself became synonymous with just enemies in general. And so the enemies themselves changed. So by the time you get to later dynasties, the king still kept the name 9 bows because it became synonymous with enemies. So you have the 9 bows, and then you also have Chasut, those who live on the other side of the hills. All right, so you have your foreign enemies further away. These are proximity. Further away, then you have your more local enemies. The bows and the Pasejet were more local enemies, and the ones on the other side of the hills, what we call Chasut, would be your more distant enemies. So we have these 2 words, Chasut and then Pasejet, although literally meaning 9 and foreign, but they also became synonymous with enemies. All right. So literally the number 9, and literally the word for foreigner or hill, mountain. But again, they started to become synonymously used for foreigners and enemies.
All right, do
Nehemi. By the way, dua means thank you. For those who may not be familiar with the word dua, it means gratitude or give thanks. And the usual response is Nehemi, which means my pleasure. And you know, it would mean to us in English, my pleasure, but it means something like, you know, hey, it's my obligation to do that. Like, don't mention it. You don't have to thank me, or it's normal. Like, oh, it's nothing. You know, it's a way of us saying that. So was there anything else? I'm trying to monitor the chat. There's not too many questions tonight. So hopefully that's a good thing, because if no questions, then that means what I presented, what I was showing is, you know, pretty straightforward. So we, you know, we can, you know.
Well, we did have a question.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Yeah, I was gonna say we had a question. It wasn't really about this. It wasn't really about this presentation though, but I mean, it kind of was. It was about Tep Hesed, and that's really to goes with this presentation, because when you're presented with information, everybody should try and apply the correct methodology towards it. Research it out and figure it out before you come to any assumptions. But the question was from our sister Lisa, and she was asking about Tep Hesed. And was it only for study, or was it for, you know, actually everyday living also? So I don't know. We're going to take time to answer that right now or not, but that was the only question I saw.
Okay, yeah. Tep Hesed is a method of of performance. It's a method of how you do something, and everybody should seek to do things correctly. You know, when you drive your car, you never get in your car with the purpose or intention of not driving correctly, unless unless you're just crazy. So any normal, sane human being would seek to do things the correct way. All right. You don't want to even cook your food and you're chopping your onions and stuff like that. You want to use the instruments that you're using correctly. You want to use your oven correctly. You want to use your stove correctly. You want to wash dishes correctly. You want to do things correctly. And so tep hesed, the word tep means the tip or the top, the head, and then hesed means to count. So it's about calculation. So it's the best way to calculate. That's what tep hesed, means. But in terms of a method, it means the correct method, because if you are very calculating in your behavior and in what you do, then that means you're going to make sure that you do it correctly. So that's what's behind that phrase, tep hesed, head count, or the best way of calculating. And you have to calculate things in order to do them correctly. So tep hesed was something that you strive for in your everyday life. But where it's written at in Kemetic literature, you'll find it more mentioned explicitly in literature that deals with mathematics, that deals with science and stuff like that. All right. But it applies to your everyday life. Nobody wants to take a shower the incorrect way, and you get out the shower and you go to your work and you kind of smelling up the place. So everybody should seek to do things the correct way. It's just that science itself is a tool of this. It's an actual methodology. When you actually do science, you're actually conducting a sequential, proper steps, one by one, in the order that it should be, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where you see the word tep hesed used a lot in science, in the context of science, and the context of math. But I hope everyone got understands. I'm just going back to this picture. Maybe I could make it full screen. I just want to show this one more time. This will just put the period on the presentation. This is the actual picture that is used to justify the belief in the UFOs in ancient Kemet. All right. So again, just to review real quick, on this picture, these are not UFOs. These are not flying saucers. These are not flying crafts of any kind. These are actual glyphs that are commonly known. It's just that these glyphs you're looking at two sets of glyphs over top of each other. Now, just real quick, there's some people that get confused about this process called a palimpsest. All right. And the reason why, and matter of fact, the brother Jehuti Ma'at, hopefully in the near future, will give a presentation on the two different styles of carving, the two major styles of carving. One is bas relief, that they call bas or bas relief, and then sunk relief. Now, just real quickly, bas or bas relief is when the carving is raised off the surface, but you're really not raising it off the surface. What you're doing is you're actually carving away the surface, and what you're drawing is left alone. So imagine you have a flat surface and you draw a picture of a smiley emoji, just a circle with a smiley face. So what you end up doing is you're carving everything but the smiley face. So you're reducing the surface lower all around the smiley face to give the impression where the smiley face is raised up. So that's bas or bas relief. Sunk relief is when you're carving into the stone. Okay, so and that's why the confusion comes when you try to explain a palimpsest. So this is sunk relief. This is relief that is carved into the stone. So it's just a matter of filling it in. So the palimpsest, the plaster is filled in. It's just put over the carving, the carved parts to fill it in to make the surface flat again, you know, smooth and flat. And then they just carve something new. Once it dries, they carve something new. Now, because of the material being different, the plaster itself from this limestone or whatever stone this is in this particular temple, and I believe it to be limestone, they're different materials. So over time, the bonding from the plaster to the limestone gives way. And you got to remember, these temples, these things are thousands of years old. And so it chips away. So the plaster comes out and it reveals whatever it filled in. Whatever it filled in, now you can see it. And so now you see both sets of glyphs. So again, so what you're seeing here is Ramesses II and his father Seti I. So Seti Marni Ptah, and we have Ramesses Meriamin. All right, or their throne names is Wisser Ma'at Ra Satepen Ra, and then you have Min Ma'at Ra for Seti I. All right, so with that, I'm just gonna stop sharing, and you know, don't want to make this too long. I don't want to reach too far for questions and things.
All right, another question. It might be a little bit off topic. It's still dealing with the like Ta Seti and Ta Mary.
Yeah, no problem. I want to kind of finish out with that topic. So yeah, we can move on. So hopefully everyone has that understanding. And again, please share this video. You know, we would like people to subscribe to our upcoming shows and things like that. Anytime this topic comes up, share this video. Share the link to the website. All right, so we're going to move on to a different topic, but I appreciate everybody tuning in and watching us go over this. And, you know, again, if anybody has any further questions or whatnot, you can always join our Facebook group and chime in, conversation, share your comments, just make reference to this video, whatever you have to do. And we always have a good discussions in the group. But okay, so yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, we know like Ta Mary land, and we know Mary's love, and we know like Ta Seti, Ta land, and Seti is bow. So my question would be about Ta Samu and Ta Mihu.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what the Samu is, and do we know what the Mahu is?
Yeah. Yeah, the best way to deal with those names is, first of all, we have to understand that there are toponyms. You know, they're designations for different geographical areas and things like that. So once we have that understanding, then we have to know that the ancient Remich, as they call themselves, dealt with things with balancement of two things. So like, for example, you mentioned Ta Seti, and then the counterpart to that would be Ta Meri. So you have Ta Meri and Ta Seti. Ta Meri means the land for the word Ta, and then Meri, which people translate as beloved, but it's actually a depiction of a hoe. It also means a hoe, which is a garden hoe. And so Seti, the word set is a bow. So you have the bow and a hoe. So we know the land is not literally a bow. We know the land is not literally a hoe, but it basically describes the mode of living. The people in Ta Seti lived by the bow, and the people in Ta Meri lived by the hoe. They were agriculturalists. They were farmers. They plowed the land. The people in Ta Seti hunted. So it's describing a mode of living. Ta Meri for agriculturalists, predominant farmers and things like that. Ta Seti, people who hunted and used the bow for those reasons. So with that, you have Kemet, which means fertile land. People say it means the black land, but the word black or Kem in the word Kemet is used metaphorically or you know, to represent the fertility of the land, not the color. All right. And how we know that is because the counterpart to that would be Desheret, where we get the word desert from. And we know that the desert is not red because the word Desher means red, like the word Kim means black. Desher means red. So we know the desert is not literally red, just like we know Kemet is not literally black. So these colors are used symbolically or metaphorically. Black is used as a metaphor for fertility. Red is used as a metaphor for infertility. So you can't plant anything in the desert and expect it to grow. So you have Kemet versus Deshret, Ta-Seti versus Ta-Meri. So now to what you asked about is you have Ta-Shema'u and Ta-Mehu. So Ta-Mehu, the word Mehu means to drown or to be submerged under something. Or means to be low, and it comes from a word for foot or feet, the bottom of something. And then Shema'u means to be narrow, something that's narrow. So again, Ta Shema'u is Upper Kemet, where the Nile narrows. The land gets more narrow and narrow and narrow as you move south on our maps. But as you move from south and going north, which will be downstream the Nile, by the time you get to the Mediterranean, the Nile is getting wider and wider. So Shema'u is indicating the narrowness of the land, and the Mehu is representing the lowness of the land, because we're at sea level now. So you have Ta Shema'u versus Ta Mehu, Kemet versus Deshret, Ta-Seti versus Ta-Meri. All right. And so hopefully that answers your question. So Shema'u means narrow, the narrow land, and Mehu means the submerged land up there by the delta. And by the way, the delta was swampy, and the Ta Shema'u was hilly, was high terrain and narrow. Yep. So hopefully that was
yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, no problem. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions. Oh, I would argue that it's wet versus dry. That definitely applies, brother Sarmutep. I mean, it definitely applies because it kind of goes along with it, because you have the delta area was very, very, very moist. Like I said, it's a swamp, and you see that the Nile splits. It splits into these other branches of these little I forgot what they call them, but it branches out, and it's at sea level. So we have to remember that it empties into the Mediterranean Sea, or as the ancient Egyptians calls it as Wajwer, which is the Great Green. All right. It emptied out into the Great Green or the Mediterranean Sea. So it is at sea level. And so when the Nile floods seasonally, by it being at sea level, it becomes very, very, very wet, very, very, very swampy. All right. And Ta Shema'u is the narrow part of the land. And obviously it will be dry because this is where the river is specifically the river, and it doesn't spill over and widen out to make the place very, very wet. All right. And see, this is where you get the sense of Shema'u being hot and dry as well. Not so much Deshret being infertile as the desert is, because it was still hospitable. Still people were living there, Upper Kemet. All right, but these names became known for the two major regions. You have the Lower Kemet, what they call Lower Kemet, and Upper Kemet. And by the way, when we say Lower Kemet and Upper Kemet, the word lower and upper is dealing with the height. Upper Kemet, not directional. And I know that's confusing to people who look at the map and they say, well, why is Upper Kemet down, or south? But upper means the terrain is up, it's high, it's mountainous. Because remember, the source of the Nile is in the mountain, and the river flows from high to low. It flows from the mountain area down to sea level, emptying it out into the Mediterranean Sea. So Upper Kemet is literally, upper is high, and Lower Kemet is literally low in terms of its height. So you're going from sea level to the mountain area, and the Nile flows from a high level to a low level. It just happens to be on our maps. It would be from the south going upward on our maps. And matter of fact, we did another presentation about ancient Egyptian orientation. You know, how did the Egyptians orientate themselves, and how can we demonstrate and improve it? And so that was a separate presentation as well. And we did that at the No Pseudo, during our No Pseudo tour as well. So maybe we'll do that. Actually, we did it here on our channel here too. So look in the archives and you know, check that out. All right, so hopefully that answers those questions. And yeah, so even what Asar is commenting on about the word Kemet, because there are people who believe that the word Kemet is referring to the skin color of the people. So they say the land of the blacks, talking about the people. And then some people think that it's talking about the color of the land, literally. And you know, I just encourage people, really encourage people to take time to study figurative language or figurative expressions and the different ways that it's done. You know, you have metaphor, you have allegory, you have symbolisms, you have what's some other ones? There are many ways of figurative expressions, figurative language. And we just have to understand that these words are not always taken literally. The word Kim does mean black. It can mean black as an adjective. And we did a whole show on it as an adjective. And as an adjective, it usually has the determinative of hair, because hair is something that is dyed and things like that. Okay, so when we're dealing with the color black, it's the word Kim, true, but it has the determinative of hair when it's speaking about the color black and used as an adjective to describe the qualities of something. But in this case, the word Kemet, it has the determinative of what I call the X-Men buckle, which is a circle with an X in it. And that is to signify a dwelling place, a place where people can converge and live. And so black is not taken literally, is to identify the fertility of the area, and that fertility is a result of water. All right, so as long as everyone understands that. And it kind of makes no sense for people who were pretty much brown, you know, to point the fact out that they're brown. And it's like us today, all healthy human beings today are bipedal. We have two legs and we walk on two legs. But you won't hear us describe ourselves as bipedal. Unless we're specifically talking about our bipedalism. But you don't see us going around saying, you know, I'm bipedal, or we don't call our country the land of bipedals. So it you know, just even without the knowledge of the language, and people, if it says the land of the blacks, it kind of goes against, you know, I guess it would be common sense. You know, it would kind of be counterintuitive to say that if everybody else around you were black. Now I could see, you know, if you were among different people. All right, so just want people to understand that. Any more questions or comments? Checking out the chat. All right, we have Asar is remember that there are other Kemets, but they're all located in the Delta, right? They're actually local towns that were also called Kemet. And I mean, really, it comes down to the fertility. And remember, the fertility is fertile. Why? Why and how is something fertile? It's because of water. So we have a combination of the sense and the notions of water. We have a sense and notion of fertility. And they kind of go together because you're not going to have a fertile land without water, a fertile area without water. All right. So people have to understand that. So not a lot, but some places in Lower Kemet, as the kingdom of Kemet, were also named Kemet themselves. And they were locations that had access to water, whether they were irrigation channels or natural flow of the Nile, or whatever the case is, they were accessible to water. And this accessibility to water is what made the area fertile. And so they it's as opposed to the infertile areas that they identified with the word desher, which is red, and desheret for the desert, to indicate infertility. Or we can say the area of no water. Without water, you're not going to be fertile. All right. And we know the importance of the flood of the Nile and the importance of agriculture itself, the deity of agriculture being Wasir. And he's green. He's not green. He's not green because he comes from the Orion stars and he's an alien or extraterrestrial that landed on Earth thousands of years ago.
What, Nebula?
Or yeah, the flying craft called Nibiru and things like that. Nah. If that's the case, Amun or Amin is blue. Wasir is green. Heru sometimes blue. I mean, you have different. Oh yeah, and Ptah. Who else? You have the different female Necheret. Would be gold, yellow.
I know Happy's always blue.
There you go. Yeah, Happy being blue. And then you have some deities that are that common reddish brown skin tone, the way they're depicted. But if you look at their hair or whatnot, it'll be multicolored headpieces and things. So again, I mean, people have to really, really take the time out and study figurative language, figurative expressions. I'm sure there's a lot of books available on it just to get an idea of how it's done. I mean, we used it today, but to, just to take time out to actually study it, because we use these idioms all day, all the time. We say, hey, those shoes are fire, man. Well, that song is on fire. We don't mean it literally. I got butterflies in my stomach. We don't mean that literally. Butterflies are not in my stomach literally. It's a metaphor for nervousness, So we have to understand this is part of communication, and it's very, very common, very, very common.
You were saying a lot of their language, we kind of discussed it previously, but a lot of their conversations uses figurative language, like hyperboles or what have you. And one that always comes to mind is like stretching of the heart, or which means like joy or happy. So that's a hyperbole word, which means to over exaggerate. You're not really stretching someone's heart out. It's just like saying I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. I'm not really eating a horse. I probably really couldn't eat a whole horse, but just goes to show the over exaggeration.
Right, exactly. And you find a lot of that in the language, like one you just gave, Awud Ib, which would be stretching the horse. Then the heart. Then you have, what's another one? Wimet Ib, which means thick heart, but it's not to be taken literally as you have a thick heart. It means somebody that is has confidence, like courage. It means one who has courage. If you have a thick heart, So there's a lot of these things, a lot of these that are around that you can, explicitly identify in the language. So I know we've been on for 2 hours, and I don't want to keep this lingering. I don't see too many questions in the comments, so hopefully everyone definitely benefit from this particular show tonight. Anybody else on the panel have anything to add? Yes, no, maybe so.
No, not really. I think it was self-explanatory. It was simpler to understand. I know some people might not go through all the information that you have on the website. So I think this was a good summary of what we have up there. It's good.
All right, yeah, and by this being a video, then you know they can always rewind and check things out. And by all means, if anybody has a question or whatever, or even has a different difference of opinion, like to hear it, because we could probably straighten that out. Quite sure we could straighten that out. But anyway, so I don't want to drag this on, so I guess this is going to conclude us for tonight. And again, I want to just check the comments one more time. Everybody seems to be satisfied. So see, now this is a classic case of Hotep. When we say ETM Hotep, we're saying, welcome in my presence with satisfaction. I want you to be satisfied in my presence. And we always say Shem Imhotep when we depart. And so we want you to depart satisfied. So looking at this chat, there's not too many questions. So hopefully everybody will be leaving us satisfied. But I see Shezmu Patah Amen. He says, Wajao, when are you going to start towards 2 Kemet? Oh yeah, that's gonna be in the future. If I ever start that up. We have people doing that already. Brother Sarmotep did it 1 or 2 times, and I believe he's has something lined up in the future. We have the brother Benu. Dang, I forgot his exact Facebook screen name, but we have the brother Benu.
Aku Benu.
Yeah, Aku Benu, who does a he goes over there. I believe even the brother Jabari out of New York that people may be familiar with, he's taking a group over there pretty soon. I think he's probably en route, as we speak. And so, but anyway, to answer your question, as far as me, I think enough people do it already. For me to like actually conduct tours, but I definitely wouldn't mind being part of one, so. But all right, so with that being said, also one minute, I'll make a short announcement that I am starting a new class group or new class groups starting the first week of August, first and second week of August, dealing with the beginners level of learning Seshew mdw-ntr. All right, so if you're interested, the links are inside of the description right here. Just go to our website and go to courses. You can find out all the information and register. You can also inbox me on Facebook. My name is Wujao, spelled the same way on Facebook, or you can you can email the email address that you see on the website. All right, if you want to get in touch, if you have any other questions. But I'm starting new class groups the first and second week of August, and each class session is 2 hours, and the duration of the class is 12 weeks. So each session is 2 hours per week for 12 weeks. All right. The price for interactive class is $100. And again, it's for 12 weeks. And I put together the groups based on everyone's availability. So I do my best to coordinate everyone and group people that have the same available time. So I've been very flexible with that. So if that's your concern, don't worry about it. Still contact me and we can go from there. But with that, I'll pass it over to Sonnet Imiket to make sure that everyone leaves satisfied.
All right, Dua. So, and once again, Dua for the presentation and also for the participation from the panel and from the chat. And I actually did enjoy it and didn't have any questions because it was pretty clear. You explained everything very well. So I know you've mentioned about the classes, so I'm not going to do that again. But what I will mention is that you make sure that you share this video, and you also make sure that if you haven't subscribed, that you do subscribe and hit the bell so you get the notifications as well. And if you haven't joined our Facebook group page, I would suggest that you do that. That is on Facebook. You can find us under the name Seshew mdw-ntr. So join the group page as well, and check out our website as well, which is mdw-ntr.com, which is mdw-ntr.com. And you can get more information about the classes, and also our 2 books that we use. You have the A Beginner's Introduction to mdw-ntr by Sabawu Zhao. And then we have the other book that we wrote discussing the decipherment. So that is Has the Egyptian Hieroglyphic Writing System Been Deciphered? A rebuttal to Walter Williams, and you can find it also on the page on the website. And both books you can actually find also on Amazon. So either way, you can make sure that you purchase the book. And also I would also like to suggest that you also log into our brother Jehudi's webpage, which is the jehudistore.com, which is THEDJEHUTI store store.com, and you can check out all the stuff that he has there. I think it's a lot of handcrafted products, and just check it out. And before I go off again, I would like to also suggest that you actually go on Asar Imhotep's page, which is ASARIMHOTEP.com, and check out what he has. I think he has there's a campaign. He has, what is it called again? It's called the Go Get 'Em fundraiser campaign. So just check out the page and read about that, get all the information. I'm not going to go into that right now, but log in and check out that. And I think he has also a birthday this weekend, so we'd like to say Heru Mesut Nefer to Asar Imhotep. And yes, again, join our group page. All the details are actually on the video, right below the video. So do that. And once again,
Where can we get this? We get singles in that. What you guys single out? Where can we get that?
Okay, Dua and Judy.
See, okay, let me tell everybody to get the, because it's hard to kind of plug yourself and your own stuff.
Right.
Okay. So as a final word, everyone make sure they support our sister Emiket. She's actually, a lot of people don't know this, but she's actually a performing artist and engineer, sound engineer. And she actually wrote songs and performed them, had videos out and the whole nine. And she's been keeping that, a lot of people just don't know. And she's done some work like years ago. She has a song from 2 years ago, 2015, called Dream Chasers that has an official video, and the song is available. So definitely support. And we'll put the link to that also in the description because we're announcing it here on this platform. But go and support, and make sure you download the song. It's downloads the single. It's 2 tracks. One is the original track, and then there's a remix. So with that, I will definitely want everyone to thank everyone again for tuning in tonight, and I want you to leave satisfied. So as you leave, I will make sure that everyone is definitely familiar with our sister Emiket. So enjoy the video.
I've got some of these and some of that. Shining sky seas in my bag. Ay, I woke up from a dream into another scene. When it hit my mind, I was still dreaming. Trust, not a fantasy or make believe. I had a voice like the wind speaking when it say to me, don't worry about the scene. It's nice to finally meet us on a spiritual level where you're meant to be. With your physical and mental, could never get to see. With the watchers, we get you out of the mighty waters. One of the daughters, you had the call and offer to walk on the grounds, but in time you forgot us. You let your body take over your true essence. Let us show you how to resonate with the higher presence. Emanate the light energy, eliminate the death rate, let it vibrate and open up the stargates. Intertwine time to the 7 planes and never lose life to enter through the poly. Dream chasers, we're traveling through time, space, cosmic blessings. Dream chasers, we're traveling through where we see the cosmic blessings. Dream chasers, we're traveling through time, space, cosmic blessings. Dream chasers, we're traveling through where we see the cosmic blessings. They say sleep is the cousin of death. Look beyond the breath, you might just detect there's no beginning, no end, no hell, just the manifestations of the cause and effects. See, I was taught to move bravely into the darkness like a soldier. Head high, proceed to where the light is. Left foot first, trample over evil. The alchemist, we master ways to overcome overcome the ego, but still, life has never been an easy road. We crawl, walk, grind, fall. Sometimes we wanna fold. It's the constant wars, the physical and spiritual, the self and the ego, good and bad is all beautiful. As long as we paint into pictures of realities, we bound to find the remedies for souls crying maladies. And that day is soon come. We know when we don't need the raindrops to see the rainbow. Dream chasers, we're traveling through time, space, cosmic lessons. Dream chasers, we're traveling through where we see the cosmic blessings. Dream chasers, we're traveling through time, space, cosmic lessons. Dream chasers, we're traveling through. I've got some of these, this and some of that. That shiny star sees in my bag.